is what I am most excited about. This is what got me jazzed this morning. Last night, I was thinking about this all night long. What are my top 10 NFL picks, my mock draft order this year, because the draft is coming up in just a few weeks. And part of what sparked this is because the Atlanta Falcons announced yesterday or 2 days ago that they are willing to move off of their number 4 overall pick, which means that they're sticking with Matty Ice, with Matt Ryan. And I don't know if they're going to draft a quarterback. It doesn't seem like they are, which makes this a much more intriguing draft heading into a couple of weeks. So for the purposes of this, I don't want to speculate any potential hypothetical trades. I'm not factoring in teams moving up or moving down in the draft order between now and then. For right now, we're looking at who are the top 10 teams in the order that they are. Where are they going to draft? So at number 1, pretty consensus pick. The Jacksonville Jaguars have the number 1 overall pick. They're going to draft Trevor Lawrence. This is a once in a lifetime type of quarterback prospect. Only Andrew Luck and John Elway received this much praise prior to a draft. Heading into the draft, this guy is absolutely fantastic from Clemson, and he's the big reason why Urban Meyer is the head coach there. If it wasn't for Trevor Lawrence, Urban Meyer would not be going to take this job in Jacksonville. He simply wouldn't be doing it. 6'6", 220 pounds, just the ideal quarterback. Jacksonville is in a complete rebuild. They need a new face of their franchise. This is a guy with tremendous, tremendous talent. He's going to be special in the NFL. They're going to take him at number 1. At number 2, New York Jets, they made it clear. They are going to draft Zach Wilson, the quarterback out of BYU. They traded away Sam Darnold. So that is a surefire sign that they want to draft a quarterback. They plan on drafting a quarterback. And by all accounts, Zach Wilson seems to be the guy. The biggest issue with the Jets last year at their quarterback position, and again, whether you want to attribute it to the porous offensive line, bad coaching, doesn't matter. Accuracy at the quarterback position was the biggest issue. Zach Wilson completed 73.5% of his passes last year at BYU. This is a guy who's 6'3". He's athletic. He's mobile. He's got a rocket of an arm, tremendous upside, and people really kind of have fallen in love with him. His stock has continued to rise just because he's extremely mature, handles himself well. I think he will fit the New York market extremely well. And so this is an organization that wanted to start anew, wanted to start fresh. Robert Saleh is the new head coach. He wants his own guy. The organization wants their own guy. Zach Wilson is the surefire bet at number 2. This is where things get interesting at number 3. San Francisco 49ers are going to take quarterback Mac Jones out of Alabama. Now, personally, I despise this move. I really do. I think that they should draft Justin Fields. I've been on his bandwagon ever since the beginning of the college football season started. The only reason why I'm actually putting Mac Jones here is because Adam Schefter of ESPN reported yesterday or a couple days ago that the 49ers are going to take Mac Jones. Kyle Shanahan is absolutely in love with Mac Jones. Now, the interesting thing is John Lynch, the GM, is leaning towards Justin Fields. So who gets the final say? I think it's probably going to be Kyle Shanahan because he's the head coach. But to me, listen, statistically, you can't argue against Mac Jones. He was absolutely fantastic, completed 77% of his passes, 4,500 yards, like 41 touchdowns, just some absurd numbers this year for him. And he was incredible at Alabama. There's no question about it. Statistically, I just think that from a talent standpoint, from an athletic standpoint, Justin Fields is just a gem. And I'm just surprised that the 49ers are leaning that way, but that's what the insiders are saying. So I'm going to assume that they are right and that they're going to draft Mac Jones at number 3. So now here comes the interesting pick with the Atlanta Falcons at number 4. I've thought a lot about this, and to me, they're going to draft Kwity Paye out of Michigan, the defensive end out of the Michigan Wolverines. This is one of those interesting picks because, again, the fact that the Falcons are willing to move off of that number 4 pick indicated to me that they're wanting to move forward with Matt Ryan for however many years that is. So they're not looking to draft a quarterback at this moment. And when you look at the Atlanta Falcons, what is their biggest need? What is their biggest the void that they need to fill? It's a pass rusher. Their defense was atrocious last year, one of the worst defenses last year. They gave up the most number of yards per game last year. And part of that was because they weren't generating enough pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Now, the reason why Kwity Paye hasn't been gaining the same type of traction and attention into this draft is because he was injured for all of last year. Or he played for only 3 games last year. So kind of, again, out of sight, out of mind. But in 2019, in 11 games, he recorded 6.5 sacks. So this is a huge athlete. This is a guy who's 6'7", or 6'4", 270 rather. So just a pure athlete who can get in and out of tight spaces well. He can block up front. I mean, he gets opposing pressure, good inside pressure on the outside. I really like Paye out of Michigan at number 4. Again, they had a bottom 3. I know they had a bottom 3 offensive line last year, but their biggest deficiency is on the defensive side. At number 5, Cincinnati Bengals. I have them taking the offensive tackle Penei Sewell out of Oregon. Cincinnati has a porous offensive line. Joe Burrow was running for his life last year before tearing his ACL. Even with running for his life last year, the guy nearly threw for 2,700 yards, 65% completion percentage in 10 games. In 10 games. He had no time to throw. He was flustered, and he was flushed out of the pocket all the time, and yet he still maintained composure, and that was with a terrible offensive line. And Penei Sewell is the best offensive tackle in the draft this year. In fact, he's arguably the most talented overall player in this draft. But again, other teams value and need the quarterback position to be filled before him, so I understand why they're leaning in a different direction. But again, Bengals had the 30th rated offensive line according to Pro Football Focus last year. Penei Sewell can come in and patch that up nicely next year for the Cincinnati Bengals. To me, he might be the most talented player overall on the board. But again, the need of the Cincinnati Bengals is to shore up that offensive line. And so I expect him to be taken at number 5, which means Miami Dolphins at number 6. I expect them to take the tight end out of Florida, Kyle Pitts. Listen, if this guy wasn't a tight end, he might be the number 1 overall pick this year. That's how talented he is. This is his size, 6'6", 246. He ran a 40-yard dash in 4.44 seconds. He's got hands like a receiver, like Travis Kelce. He's extremely fast. He's a burner for a tight end, even with a guy his speed. And this is the biggest question mark for the Miami Dolphins. Is Tua their quarterback moving forward? Well, there's only one way to find out. They want to surround him with as many weapons as they can to determine, is this guy our guy? Last year, Tua had a very pedestrian season, 1,814 yards passing, a meager 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 64% completion percentage. He really wasn't that good last year. It's not like he was horrible, but he didn't show flashes of great last year. And so if you wanted to attribute it to the lack of receivers, fine. Although now there's no excuses. You've got Devontae Parker. You traded for Will Fuller. You still have Mike Gesicki. And when they draft Kyle Pitts, there will be no more excuses. Their defense was a top 3 defense in the league last year, forced the most number of turnovers last year, led by Xavier Howard. So there aren't any more excuses once they draft Kyle Pitts. Is Tua the guy? That's the question that they need to see, because this is a guy, 770 receiving yards last year, 12 touchdowns, just a tremendous player and a tremendous talent. At number 7, the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions, listen, they need help all across the board. But the reality is they just traded for Jared Goff, their quarterback. What's the most important thing to a quarterback? A really good wide receiver. Kenny Golladay is gone. They don't have him anymore. So they need to pair Jared Goff with an elite wide receiver immediately to reap the benefits of trading for him. And Jamar Chase is, while there are a lot of really talented wide receivers in this draft, Jamar Chase has been the unanimous number one wide receiver for now 2 years. If he had decided to enter the draft last year, I think he would have been the number one wide receiver taken off the board. This is a guy who, yes, opted out of the season for LSU last year, but 2 years ago, in their incredible championship run, when they went 15-0, this is a guy that had over 1,700 yards, 20 touchdowns at LSU. He's a fantastic route runner, has tremendous hands. He's big. He's 6'2", so or 6 feet rather. But he's bulky. He weighs a lot, and so I really like him. I think that again with Burrow needing, or sorry, not with Burrow, with Jared Goff needing some help immediately out of the gates in Detroit. Sure, they could take anyone and they'd be an upgrade for them, but I think they really need to start to shore up their weapons to try and get the best out of Jared Goff. So I think Jamar Chase is taken at number 7. At number 8, this is another controversial pick, the Carolina Panthers. We were just talking about them. I think they're still going to draft a quarterback. I think they're going to take Justin Fields, the quarterback out of Ohio State. He's just too talented to drop any farther than this. And I think that even if the Carolina Panthers believe that Sam Darnold is their future, I just don't see them passing up on this quarterback prospect because it's a low investment for both. Sam Darnold isn't being paid that much. And in the grand scheme of things, Justin Fields wouldn't be paid that much. I've always been really high on Justin Fields. I don't know why all of a sudden his stock has slipped so much. I thought he was the consensus number 2 pick entering this year. That hasn't been the case. I again believe the 49ers should take him at number 3. We'll see if they ultimately do or not. But to me, when you think about the Carolina Panthers, when they had their most success with Cam Newton, who is 6'5", 250 pounds, during his Super Bowl season and his Super Bowl appearance and his MVP season in 2015, he didn't even complete 60% of his passes. His best weapon was Greg Olsen. They relied on their defense and Cam's running ability to really take them over the hump to reach that Super Bowl. Well, Justin Fields is just as strong. He's just as mobile. He's just as athletic, 6'3", 230 pounds. He's got a rocket of an arm, and you're looking at accuracy. Justin Fields completed 70% of his passes last year, 69% of his passes in 2 seasons at Ohio State. So this is a guy, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions last year, rushed for 5 rushing touchdowns this year, 10 rushing touchdowns last year. I really like Justin Fields. I think he could be the perfect complement, and you pair an athletic quarterback with DJ Moore, with Robbie Anderson, with Christian McCaffrey. Their defense is still set. I just think that Justin Fields can add another element to their offense that they wouldn't have had otherwise before. I really like him at number 8. At number 9, Denver Broncos. I think they're going to draft a quarterback, Trey Lance, out of North Dakota State. The truth of the matter is, and John Elway, I'm sure, would admit it to everyone, is they've whiffed on quarterbacks recently. Look at their latest slew of quarterbacks. Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch, Brock Osweiler, Drew Lock wasn't the guy. Case Keenum wasn't the guy. And the problem is that their defense has always been so good that their team as a whole has never had a weak enough record where they were able to draft in the top 5 or the top 3. In fact, I think if you're the Denver Broncos, whether or not I know this or not, they should be calling the Atlanta Falcons right now and trying to trade up for quarterback, because let's just assume that, again, I didn't want to speculate and assume that they did or that they are going to do that. So I'll assume that they're at number 9. They should be calling the Atlanta Falcons for that number 4 pick. But if they're at number 9, they need a quarterback desperately. And the reality is, Trey Lance, even though we have limited tape on him, by all accounts, he's kind of the consensus top 5 quarterback. He's the 5th best quarterback, according to most, in this NFL draft. And think about the circumstances in which he played. He's used to playing in inclement weather. He's a big, bulky player, kind of like a Carson Wentz type. who's used to playing in the cold, a big arm. This is not going to be a big transition for him in Denver because the Broncos need a quarterback that's used to that inclement weather that can throw through it, and Trey Lance could be that guy. So I think he could be a good fit when it comes to those players. At number 10 is the Dallas Cowboys. Well, Dallas Cowboys, they need help on defense. And while you could say, yeah, Jalen Smith isn't really doing it at the linebacker position, is DeMarcus Lawrence really worth all the money? Should they draft another pass rusher? Maybe, but their secondary is their biggest need right now. And so I think they're going to take Patrick Surtain, the third, out of Alabama. This is a big, physical 6'2 cornerback who's aggressive. He'll dislodge passes. He jumps routes really well. Again, he can play you straight up. He's physical. He'll deliver blows when you need it. And this just seems like the obvious pick. Again, another Nick Saban guy. I think he'll have tremendous success. And the Cowboys just need more playmakers and disruptors on defense, and especially in their secondary. And I think that he can come in and do that.